Okay, here's the story, crafted to fit the title and guidelines. Cha Seung-won walked into a restaurant and was refused. Seconds later, he made them sorry. The humid Seoul air hung thick and heavy, clinging to Cha Seung-won like a second skin as he stepped out of the sleek black van. Paparazzi, as always, were a predictable nuisance, their flashes momentarily blinding him. He offered a curt nod, a practiced smile flickering across his face, and pushed through the throng toward the entrance of Hanul's Gastronomy, a newly opened restaurant rumored to be serving the most innovative Korean fusion cuisine in the city. He'd heard whispers of kimchi jjigae reimagined as a delicate consomme and bulgogi presented as art. Curiosity, a rare craving for something new, had drawn him in. He was, after all, Cha Seung-won. Actor. Model. A face recognized globally, a name synonymous with charisma and talent. He wasn't accustomed to being denied anything. The maitre d', a young man with a perfectly sculpted haircut and an even more perfectly sculpted air of disdain, barely glanced up as Cha Seung-won approached. He was busy fiddling with a tablet, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Good evening," Cha Seung-won said, his voice a low rumble that usually commanded attention. The maitre d' finally looked up, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly before settling back into a mask of professional indifference. "Do you have a reservation, sir?" he asked, his tone perfunctory. "No, I don't," Cha Seung-won admitted, already sensing a subtle shift in the atmosphere. "I was hoping you might have a table available." The maitre d' tapped the tablet with a manicured fingernail. "I'm afraid we're fully booked this evening, sir. We have a waiting list that's quite extensive." He offered a thin, insincere smile. "Perhaps you could try again another time with a reservation?" Cha Seung-won scanned the restaurant. He could see at least 3 empty tables. Not small, tucked away ones, but prime spots with clear views of the open kitchen. He knew the game. He'd played it himself, albeit unintentionally, on the other side of the velvet rope. This wasn't about being fully booked. This was about something else. He could feel it in the air, a subtle current of disrespect. "I see several empty tables," he pointed out, his voice still polite, but with a definite edge. The maitre d' flushed slightly. "Those are reserved for special guests," he stammered, avoiding eye contact. Cha Seung-won's eyes narrowed. He was rarely recognized instantly these days, having cultivated a more understated public persona. Tonight, he was dressed simply in a dark jacket and jeans, his face partially obscured by a baseball cap. He hadn't expected to be treated like this. "Special guests," he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Are you implying I'm not a special guest?" The maitre d' visibly paled. He clearly recognized him now. The realization dawned on his face like a slow-motion train wreck. "Mr. Cha. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. Please, allow me to escort you to the best table in the house immediately." He began to frantically wave his arms, trying to flag down a passing waiter. But Cha Seung-won held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. The smile that now graced his face was anything but friendly. "Seconds too late," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I don't think I'll be dining here tonight." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But I do have a proposition for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened his Instagram account, which boasted millions of followers. He held it up, the screen facing the maitre d'. "I'm going to post a review," he said, his tone conversational. "A very honest review. I'll detail my experience here tonight. The empty tables, the blatant lie about being fully booked, and the unfortunate initial assessment of my special guest status." The maitre d' looked like he was about to faint. "Mr. Cha, please. I beg you. It was a misunderstanding. I'll be fired. I have a family to support." Cha Seung-won remained unmoved. He knew the power he wielded. He could make or break a restaurant with a single post. But he wasn't interested in destroying this young man's career. He was interested in teaching a lesson. "I'm not going to write a negative review," he said, surprising the maitre d'. "But I am going to write a review. A review about the importance of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their perceived status or appearance. A review about how judging a book by its cover can lead to missed opportunities and profound regrets. He started typing, his fingers flying across the screen. The paparazzi, sensing a newsworthy moment, surged forward, their cameras clicking furiously. He posted the review, a short but powerful message about humility and the value of genuine service. Within minutes, the post went viral. The restaurant's phone started ringing off the hook. Not with reservations, but with calls of support for Cha Seung-won and condemnation of the maitre d's behavior. Cha Seung-won turned to the maitre d', who was now trembling uncontrollably. "I'm not going to demand your firing," he said. "But I am going to suggest that the owner of this establishment re-evaluates their training program. And I hope you learn from this experience. Remember, everyone deserves respect. From the dishwasher in the back to the CEO in the penthouse." He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Oh, and one more thing," he said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "I'll be back. But next time, I expect to be treated like a valued customer, not a celebrity." He walked out into the night, leaving the maitre d' staring after him, a mixture of shame, relief, and a newfound understanding etched on his face. The next day, the story was everywhere. News outlets, blogs, and social media were ablaze with the tale of Cha Seung-won and the restaurant that refused him. Hanul's gastronomy was inundated with messages, both positive and negative. The owner, mortified by the incident, issued a public apology and announced a complete overhaul of the restaurant's customer service policies. The maitre d', instead of being fired, was given a second chance. He underwent extensive training in customer relations and sensitivity. He learned to see people, not just potential revenue streams or social media clout. He learned the value of genuine hospitality. A week later, Cha Seung-won returned to Hanul's gastronomy. He made a reservation this time, under an assumed name. He was greeted warmly at the door by the very same maitre d', who now offered him a sincere bow and escorted him to a quiet table. The service was impeccable. The food was even better than he had imagined. And the atmosphere was noticeably different. The air of exclusivity had been replaced by a genuine sense of welcome. As he finished his meal, the maitre d' approached his table. "Mr. Cha," he said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. For giving me a second chance. For teaching me a valuable lesson. And for helping us become a better restaurant." Cha Seung-won smiled. "You're welcome," he said. "Sometimes, the greatest lessons are learned from the most unexpected encounters." He left the restaurant that night, not as a celebrity, but as a human being who had made a difference. He had shown them that true success wasn't about exclusivity or status, but about treating everyone with kindness and respect. He had made them sorry, not for refusing him, but for forgetting the fundamental values that truly mattered. The incident became a legend in Seoul's restaurant scene, a reminder that even the most famous faces are just people, deserving of the same courtesy and consideration as everyone else. And Cha Seung-won, the actor who walked into a restaurant and was refused, became a symbol of humility, grace, and the power of using one's influence for good. He proved that sometimes, the most impactful performances are the ones that happen off-screen, in the everyday moments that shape our world. The restaurant thrived, becoming known not just for its innovative cuisine, but for its commitment to inclusivity and genuine hospitality. It was a testament to the transformative power of a single act of kindness and the enduring impact of a lesson learned. And Cha Seung-won, the man who could have destroyed them, ultimately helped them become something better. He showed them that true success wasn't about climbing the ladder of fame and fortune, but about reaching out a hand to help others along the way. And that, in the end, was a far more rewarding role to play. The ripple effects of that night continued to spread. Other restaurants in Seoul, and eventually across South Korea, began to scrutinize their own policies, implementing sensitivity training and emphasizing the importance of treating all customers with equal respect. The Cha Seung-won effect, as it became known in some circles, sparked a national conversation about classism and prejudice within the service industry. Cha Seung-won himself remained characteristically humble, deflecting praise and emphasizing the importance of collective responsibility. He used his platform to champion various causes, advocating for fair labor practices and promoting empathy and understanding. He understood that his influence came with a responsibility, and he was determined to use it wisely. Years passed. Cha Seung-won continued to star in critically acclaimed films and television dramas, solidifying his status as one of South Korea's most beloved and respected actors. But he never forgot the lesson he had learned that night at Hanul's gastronomy. One rainy afternoon, while filming on location outside of Seoul, he found himself with a rare break in his schedule. He remembered a small, unassuming restaurant he had passed on his way to the set, a place that looked nothing like the trendy, upscale establishments he usually frequented. It was a simple noodle shop, its windows fogged with steam, the aroma of rich broth wafting into the street. He decided to pay it a visit. He walked in, shaking the rain from his coat. The restaurant was small and crowded, filled with locals enjoying a hearty lunch. He found an empty seat at a communal table and sat down. No one recognized him. He was just another customer, seeking refuge from the rain and a warm meal. He ordered a bowl of janchi guksu, a simple noodle soup with vegetables and a savory broth. As he ate, he observed the other diners, the hard-working families, the students, the elderly couples. He felt a sense of connection to them, a sense of shared humanity. The owner, a kind-faced woman with wrinkles etched around her eyes, noticed him sitting alone. She approached his table with a warm smile. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked. "Is the soup to your liking?" "It's delicious," Cha Seung-won replied, genuinely impressed. "Thank you." The woman hesitated for a moment, then leaned closer. "You know," she said, her voice low, "you remind me of someone famous. An actor, I think." "Cha Seung-won." Cha Seung-won chuckled. "I get that a lot," he said. "I guess I have one of those faces." The woman smiled knowingly. "Well, famous or not, you're welcome here anytime. We treat everyone the same." Cha Seung-won's heart swelled with a sense of quiet satisfaction. He had come full circle. He had started as a celebrity-denied entry to a fancy restaurant, and now he was just another customer, welcomed with open arms into a humble noodle shop. He finished his soup, paid his bill, and thanked the woman again. As he walked out into the rain, he realized that true success wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about the simple act of connecting with others, of treating everyone with kindness and respect, regardless of their background or status. It was about making a difference, however small, in the lives of those around you. He returned to the set, refreshed and invigorated. He knew that the work he did as an actor was important, that it had the power to entertain and inspire. But he also knew that the most meaningful moments in life were often the ones that happened off-screen, the quiet acts of kindness and compassion that shaped our world. And as he stood under the bright lights, preparing to deliver his lines, he carried with him the memory of that rainy afternoon, the warmth of the noodle soup, and the simple truth that everyone deserves to be treated with respect. He knew that he would continue to use his voice to advocate for equality and understanding, to challenge prejudice and discrimination, and to remind the world that true greatness lies not in fame or fortune, but in the ability to connect with others on a human level. The story of Cha Seung-won and the restaurant that refused him became more than just a cautionary tale. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the most entrenched prejudices can be overcome, and that even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact. It was a story that resonated with people from all walks of life, inspiring them to be more compassionate, more understanding, and more respectful of one another. And Cha Seung-won, the actor who walked into a restaurant and was refused, became a legend, not just for his talent and charisma, but for his unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. He had made them sorry, not with anger or vengeance, but with grace, humility, and the enduring power of human connection. He taught them, and the world, that true greatness lies not in the spotlight, but in the simple act of treating everyone with the dignity and respect they deserve. And that, in the end, is a legacy worth more than any award or accolade. The years continued to unfold, each one adding another layer to Cha Seung-won's already rich tapestry of experiences. He continued to act, choosing roles that challenged him, roles that explored the complexities of human nature, roles that sparked dialogue and provoked thought. He used his platform to shine a light on important social issues, lending his voice to causes he believed in, from environmental protection to children's education. He never forgot the small noodle shop, the kind-faced owner, and the quiet lesson he had learned that rainy afternoon. He made it a point to visit whenever he was in the area, always making sure to order the janchi guksu and always taking the time to chat with the owner and the other patrons. He became a regular, a familiar face, a part of the community. One day, he arrived at the noodle shop to find it closed. A sign on the door read, "Closed for renovations. Reopening soon." He felt a pang of disappointment. He had been looking forward to his bowl of janchi guksu and the comforting familiarity of the place. He continued filming on location for several weeks, and each time he passed the noodle shop, it remained closed. He began to worry. He wondered if the owner was all right. He wondered if the renovations were taking longer than expected. Finally, one afternoon, he saw that the sign had been removed. The noodle shop was open. He parked his car and hurried inside, eager to see the changes and to reconnect with the owner. But the noodle shop was not the same. It had been completely transformed. The simple, unassuming decor had been replaced with sleek, modern furnishings. The communal tables were gone, replaced with individual booths. The menu had been expanded, featuring a variety of upscale noodle dishes with exorbitant prices. The owner, however, was still there. She was standing behind the counter, looking uncomfortable and out of place in her new surroundings. Seung-won approached her, a knot forming in his stomach. "What happened?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. The owner sighed. "After you visited," she said, "business started to pick up. People were curious. They wanted to see the place where Seung-won ate. We started getting more customers, but they weren't the same kind of customers. They were tourists and wealthy businessmen, people who wanted something fancy." She paused, her eyes filled with sadness. The landlord saw an opportunity. He raised the rent and demanded that we renovate the place to attract a more upscale clientele. We had no choice. We had to borrow money, change the menu, and completely transform the restaurant. Seung-won was heartbroken. He had inadvertently caused the very thing he had tried to prevent. His visit to the noodle shop, meant to be a gesture of humility and connection, had ironically led to its downfall. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for this to happen." The owner smiled sadly. "It's not your fault," she said. "You were just being kind. But sometimes, kindness can have unintended consequences." Seung-won felt a deep sense of responsibility. He knew he had to do something to help. He couldn't let the noodle shop and the kind-hearted owner disappear. He spent the next few days brainstorming, trying to come up with a solution. He considered offering the owner financial assistance, but he knew that wouldn't solve the underlying problem. The noodle shop had lost its soul, its connection to the community. Finally, he had an idea. He approached the owner with a proposition. "I want to buy the noodle shop," he said. "But not to turn it into something fancy. I want to restore it to its former glory. I want to bring back the communal tables, the simple decor, and the affordable menu. I want to make it a place where everyone feels welcome, regardless of their background or status." The owner was stunned. "But why would you do that?" she asked. "You're a famous actor. You could invest your money in something much more profitable." Seung-won smiled. "Because," he said, "I believe in this place. I believe in its values. And I believe that it deserves to exist." The owner agreed to sell him the noodle shop. Seung-won immediately began the process of restoring it to its original state. He hired local artisans to recreate the simple decor. He brought back the communal tables. He reinstated the affordable menu, featuring the same delicious janchi guksu that he had grown to love. He also made a point of hiring back the original staff, the hard-working individuals who had been displaced by the renovations. He wanted to create a welcoming and supportive environment for everyone who worked at the noodle shop. When the renovations were complete, Seung-won held a grand reopening ceremony. He invited the entire community to celebrate. He gave a short speech emphasizing the importance of preserving local traditions and supporting small businesses. The noodle shop was once again a thriving hub of community life. People from all walks of life gathered to enjoy the simple, delicious food and the warm, welcoming atmosphere. Cha Seung-won continued to visit the noodle shop regularly, not as a celebrity, but as a friend and a supporter. He would often help out behind the counter, serving customers and chatting with the staff. He had learned a valuable lesson about the unintended consequences of kindness. He had also learned that true success wasn't about personal gain, but about using one's influence to make a positive impact on the lives of others. The story of Cha Seung-won and the noodle shop became another chapter in his growing legend. It was a testament to his unwavering commitment to humility, compassion, and the importance of preserving local traditions. He continued to act, to advocate, and to inspire. He lived his life with purpose and passion, always striving to make the world a better place. And he never forgot the lessons he had learned from the restaurant that refused him, the noodle shop that transformed, and the kind-hearted people who had touched his life along the way. He knew that his journey was far from over, that there would be more challenges, more setbacks, and more opportunities to learn and grow. But he was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that he had the power to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. And that, in the end, was all that truly mattered. He had made them sorry, not for who he was, but for who they had forgotten to be. And in doing so, he had reminded them, and the world, of the enduring power of human connection and the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect. The ripple effects of Cha Seung-won's actions extended far beyond the culinary world. His dedication to the noodle shop, his refusal to let it become another casualty of gentrification, inspired a wave of similar initiatives across South Korea. People began to recognize the value of preserving local businesses and traditions, fighting against the relentless march of modernization that threatened to erase the unique character of their communities. Small businesses, often overlooked and undervalued, found themselves celebrated and supported. Community gardens sprouted in urban spaces, providing fresh produce and a sense of connection to the land. Traditional craft workshops experienced a resurgence, as people rediscovered the beauty and artistry of handmade goods. The Cha Seung-won effect evolved into a broader movement, a cultural shift that prioritized community, sustainability, and the preservation of heritage. It was a testament to the power of one person's actions to inspire change on a grand scale. Cha Seung-won continued to use his platform to amplify these efforts, lending his support to various organizations and initiatives. He hosted fundraising events, spoke at community gatherings, and used his social media presence to raise awareness about the importance of preserving local culture. He understood that his influence came with a responsibility, and he was determined to use it wisely. He saw himself not just as an actor, but as an advocate for a more just and equitable society. One crisp autumn evening, years after the noodle shop incident, Cha Seung-won received an unexpected invitation. He was asked to be the keynote speaker at a national conference on sustainable development. He was hesitant at first. He wasn't an expert on economics or environmental science. He was just an actor. But the organizers of the conference insisted that his story, his commitment to the noodle shop, and his advocacy for local communities had resonated deeply with people across the country. They believed that his perspective, his ability to connect with ordinary people, would be invaluable. He accepted the invitation, knowing that it was an opportunity to share his message with a wider audience. He spent weeks preparing his speech, carefully crafting his words to convey his message of hope and inspiration. On the day of the conference, Cha Seung-won stood on the stage, facing a crowd of hundreds of people. He was nervous, but he was also determined. He began his speech by recounting the story of the restaurant that had refused him, the noodle shop that had transformed, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He spoke about the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their background or status. He spoke about the need to preserve local traditions and support small businesses. He spoke about the power of community and the importance of working together to create a more sustainable future. His words resonated deeply with the audience. People were moved by his sincerity, his humility, and his unwavering commitment to his values. When he finished his speech, he received a standing ovation. After the conference, Cha Seung-won was approached by countless people who wanted to share their own stories of community activism and social change. He listened patiently, offering words of encouragement and support. He realized that he was part of something much bigger than himself. He was part of a movement, a global effort to create a more just and sustainable world. He continued to act, to advocate, and to inspire. He traveled the world, meeting with community leaders, environmental activists, and social entrepreneurs. He learned from their experiences and shared his own. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the most entrenched problems can be overcome with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to one's values. One day, he received a letter from a young woman who had been inspired by his story. She had started a community garden in her neighborhood, providing fresh produce to low-income families. She wrote to thank him for his example, for showing her that even one person can make a difference. Cha Seung-won was deeply moved by her letter. He realized that his actions had had a ripple effect, inspiring others to take action in their own communities. He knew that his journey was far from over. He knew that there would be more challenges, more setbacks, and more opportunities to learn and grow. But he was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that he had the power to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. Years later, Cha Seung-won found himself reflecting on his life. He had achieved fame and fortune, but he knew that his greatest accomplishments were not the awards he had won or the accolades he had received. His greatest accomplishments were the positive changes he had helped to bring about in the lives of others. He had made them sorry, not with anger or vengeance, but with grace, humility, and the enduring power of human connection. He had taught them, and the world, that true greatness lies not in the spotlight, but in the simple act of treating everyone with the dignity and respect they deserve. And that, in the end, is a legacy worth more than any award or accolade. He sat on the porch of his small house, overlooking a garden filled with flowers and vegetables. He watched as the sun set, painting the sky with vibrant colors. He smiled, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. He had lived a good life, a life filled with purpose and meaning. He had made a difference in the world, and he was proud of the legacy he had left behind. The Cha Seung-won effect continued to ripple through the world, inspiring people to be more compassionate, more understanding, and more respectful of one another. And that, he knew, was a legacy that would endure for generations to come. The restaurant that refused him had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that transformed not only his life, but the lives of countless others. And in the end, that was the greatest reward of all. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden. Cha Seung-won closed his eyes, inhaling the fragrant scent of the blooming jasmine. The crickets chirped their evening song, a soothing melody that resonated with the quiet contentment in his heart. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling up to his gate broke the tranquility. He opened his eyes, curious. He wasn't expecting any visitors. As the car door opened, a young woman stepped out, holding a small, worn photograph in her hand. She approached the porch hesitantly, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and nervousness. "Mr. Cha Seung-won?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He smiled warmly. "Yes, that's me. What can I do for you?" The young woman took a deep breath and held out the photograph. It was a faded image of a small, unassuming noodle shop, the same noodle shop he had helped to restore years ago. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about this place," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "She said it was a place where everyone was welcome, where people from all walks of life could come together and share a meal. She said it was a place that represented the best of our community." Cha Seung-won's heart skipped a beat. He remembered those days vividly, the sense of community, the warmth of the atmosphere, the simple joy of sharing a bowl of janchi guksu with friends and neighbors. "She passed away a few months ago," the young woman continued, her eyes filling with tears. "Before she died, she gave me this photograph and told me to find you. She said that you were the one who made it all possible, that you were the one who reminded us of the importance of kindness and community." She paused, wiping away a tear with the back of her hand. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for everything you did. Thank you for inspiring my grandmother, and thank you for inspiring me." Cha Seung-won's eyes welled up with tears. He was deeply touched by the young woman's words. He realized that the legacy of the noodle shop, the Cha Seung-won effect, was still alive, still inspiring people to make a difference in their communities. He reached out and took the young woman's hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Your grandmother was a wonderful woman," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "She understood the true meaning of community. And she passed that understanding on to you." He smiled warmly. The best way to honor her memory is to continue her work, to continue to build a more just and equitable society, one act of kindness at a time. The young woman nodded, her eyes shining with renewed determination. "I will," she said. "I promise." Cha Seung-won watched as the young woman walked back to her car and drove away. He stood on the porch for a long time, reflecting on the power of human connection, the importance of community, and the enduring legacy of kindness. He knew that his journey was far from over. He knew that there would be more challenges, more setbacks, and more opportunities to learn and grow. But he was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that he had the power to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. As he turned to go back inside, he noticed a small F